Captain Laura Mitchell stood at the observation deck of the UEON's Hope's Light, watching the stars drift by as her ship glided through space. The massive hospital ship was Earth's pride, a testament to humanity's commitment to healing and peace. At nearly 2 kilometers long, its white hull gleamed under distant starlight, red crosses prominently displayed on both sides. She checked her tablet, reviewing the day's schedule. 3 more stops awaited them in this sector, all colonies needing medical assistance. The ship carried enough supplies and medical staff to treat millions, and they never turned anyone away, human or alien. First Officer Kevin Walsh's voice came through her communicator. "Captain, we're approaching the Centauri 7 colony. Their situation looks worse than initially reported." "What are we dealing with?" Laura asked, already walking toward the bridge. "A viral outbreak. Similar to what we treated on Proxima b last month, but more aggressive. Dr. Allen estimates we'll need at least 3 days here instead of the planned one." Laura entered the bridge, nodding to her crew. The massive view screen showed the approaching colony, a collection of domed structures on a rocky world. "Then we'll stay for 3 days. Have Dr. Allen prepare his teams. I want first responders ready in 30 minutes." Kevin looked up from his station, his face reflecting blue light from the holographic displays. "What about our other scheduled stops? Send messages to the other colonies. Explain the delay. They know we'll get to them. We always do." Laura sat in her command chair, fingers dancing over the control panel built into the armrest. "Status of our medical supplies. Cargo holds 2 through 7 are still at 90% capacity," Kevin replied. "We can handle this and still make our other stops." The massive ship began its approach to the colony's main docking station. At nearly half the size of the colony itself, the Hope's Light had to use its secondary medical shuttles to ferry personnel and supplies down. Laura watched as her crew efficiently prepared for another mercy mission. Officer Samantha Peters spoke up from her communication station. "Captain, I'm picking up some unusual readings. Multiple objects at the edge of our sensor range." "Military vessels?" Laura asked. It wasn't uncommon to see patrol ships in this sector. "No, ma'am. Configuration is unknown. They're not broadcasting any identification signals." Kevin moved to the sensor station, his brow furrowing. "Could be merchant ships with faulty transponders. We've seen that before out here on the rim." Laura felt uneasy. Something about this didn't feel right. In 15 years of commanding mercy ships, she'd developed a sense for trouble. "How long until we can dock with the colony?" 20 minutes to achieve stable orbit and begin shuttle operations," Kevin answered. "Sam, keep monitoring those ships. If they come within 1 light minute of our position, I want to know immediately." Laura turned to her medical officer. "Dr. Allen, your teams have 15 minutes to prep. I want everyone ready for rapid deployment." The bridge crew worked efficiently, years of experience evident in their smooth movements. The Hope's Light carried over 2,000 medical personnel and another 1,000 crew members. Every one of them had been chosen for their skills and dedication to helping others. Sam's voice cut through the quiet efficiency of the bridge. "Captain, those ships, they're accelerating toward us. Multiple vessels, now reading energy signatures. They're charging weapons." Laura's training kicked in. "Shield status. Medical-grade deflectors only, Captain. We're not built for combat," Kevin replied, his voice tense. "Get me a visual," Laura ordered. The main screen shifted, showing multiple approaching vessels. Their design was familiar, Zoraxian ships. But that couldn't be right. The Zoraxians were allies. Earth had been helping them deal with plagues and natural disasters for decades. The first energy blast struck before anyone could react. The Hope's Light shuddered, its medical-grade shields barely absorbing the impact. Laura gripped her chair as alarms blared throughout the ship. "All hands, emergency stations," she shouted. "Begin immediate evacuation procedures. Get our patients and medical staff to the escape pods." She turned to Sam. "Send an emergency signal to Earth Command. Tell them we're under attack." The Hope's Light's white hull, marked with its proud red crosses, blazed with fire as more shots struck home. Humanity's greatest mercy ship, built to heal, found itself in the middle of an active war. The age of peace was about to end. The escape pod tumbled through space, its systems barely functioning after the violent launch. Inside, Samantha Peters held onto the emergency medkit with one hand and the communications console with the other. 5 other survivors crowded the small space meant for 4 people. Through the pod's tiny viewport, she watched the Hope's light die. The massive hospital ship's white hull was now black with weapon burns, its proud red crosses obscured by smoke and fire. The Zoraxian ships continued firing even as escape pods launched in all directions. "Why are they doing this?" Dr. Allen whispered, pressing a bandage against his forehead. "We saved millions of their people." Sam didn't answer. She was too busy trying to boost the pod's weak transmitter. The emergency message had to reach Earth. She had seen something in those final moments on the bridge. Similar attacks happening across human space. The Hope's light wasn't the only target. "Other mercy ships are under attack," she said, her fingers flying over the console. "The Comfort, the Healing Hand, the Grace of Terra, all of them. It's coordinated." The pod shuddered as debris from their dying ship struck its hull. Through the viewport, they watched as the Hope's light's massive medical bay exploded, sending vital supplies and equipment spinning into the void. Decades of humanitarian work, destroyed in minutes. On another screen, Sam tracked other escape pods. Most were heading toward the colony, but the Zoraxian ships were targeting them too. Her heart sank as she watched pod after pod vanish from her sensors. "They're not just attacking the ships," one of the nurses said. "They're hunting survivors." Sam finally managed to strengthen the transmitter signal. "This is Communications Officer Samantha Peters of the UEMS Hope's Light. Emergency Protocol 7. I repeat, Emergency Protocol 7. All mercy ships are under attack by Zoraxian forces. They're targeting escape pods. The attacks are happening across multiple sectors. This is not an isolated incident." She paused, watching as more Zoraxian ships emerged from hyperspace. "Earth Command, they used our mercy missions to map our space. Every colony we helped, every planet we visited. They gathered data. They know where everything is." The pod's sensors beeped a warning. 2 Zoraxian fighters had broken off from the main attack and were heading their way. Sam's hands trembled as she continued recording. "The Zoraxians waited until our ships were spread across human space, helping their colonies. They waited until we were at our most vulnerable. Don't send more mercy ships. They'll only be destroyed. The peace was a lie. They used our kindness against us." Dr. Allen moved to the viewport, his face pale. "More ships coming out of hyperspace. But those aren't Zoraxian designs." Sam looked up from her console. Through the viewport, she saw massive ships appearing. Their hulls were dark gray, almost black, with no markings or lights. They moved with deadly purpose, positioning themselves between the escape pods and the Zoraxian attackers. "Unknown vessels, this is a rescue mission." A deep voice came through the pod speakers. "We are the Earth Defense Fleet's Rapid Response Unit. All survivors, maintain your current vectors. We will cover your retreat." The new ships opened fire, their weapons far more powerful than anything Sam had ever seen on a mercy ship. The Zoraxian vessels, caught by surprise, scrambled to raise their shields. "Earth has warships?" the nurse asked, pressing against the viewport for a better view. "Earth has everything," Sam replied, understanding dawning in her eyes. "We chose to send mercy ships first. We chose to help rather than threaten. But they mistook our kindness for weakness." She turned back to her console, adding one final message to her transmission. "Earth Command, the Zoraxians think they know all of humanity's capabilities because they've seen our mercy ships. They think they understand us because they've seen our kindness. They're about to learn how wrong they are." The pod's engines sputtered as they pushed toward the safety of the defense fleet. Behind them, the Hope's light finally broke apart. its fragments scattered across space. But as Sam watched their rescuers engage the enemy, she realized this wasn't just the end of a mercy ship. It was the end of an era. Admiral John Carter stood in Earth Defense Command's war room, watching as red dots appeared across the massive holographic display. Each dot represented a mercy ship lost to the Zoraxian attacks. Dozens of lights winked out as reports came in, each one carrying hundreds or thousands of medical personnel. Preliminary casualty reports, sir, Mary Richardson said, her voice tight with anger. She handed him a tablet. As Chief Strategic Officer, she had spent the last 6 hours analyzing the attack patterns. We've lost contact with 37 mercy ships. Only 12 have confirmed survivor pods. John gripped the tablet hard enough to make his knuckles white. The comfort? Gone, sir. The healing hand, too. The Hope's light was the last to fall. We received a final transmission from Communications Officer Peters before we lost contact. The Admiral watched as more military staff rushed into the war room. Screens lit up around them, showing ships being brought out of storage, crews being mobilized. Show me what you found, Mary. She stepped to the main display, bringing up a series of maps. The Zoraxians used our humanitarian missions to gather intelligence. Every time we sent aid, they were studying us. Colony locations, defense capabilities, supply routes. They mapped everything. And we helped them do it, John said. We were so focused on helping their colonies, treating their sick. There's more. Mary brought up another display showing shipyard activities. They waited until our mercy ships were spread thin across space, but they also timed their attack to coincide with our scheduled maintenance rotations. They knew exactly when our visible military presence would be at its lowest. John smiled grimly, but they only knew about the ships we showed them. He pressed a button on his command console. The floor split open, and a new holographic display rose from below. It showed a different map of human space, this one filled with hidden facilities and classified installations. Send the activation codes to Europa Base, he ordered. Tell Commander Phillips to begin revival protocol. I want every mothballed warship checked, upgraded, and ready for action. Mary nodded, then hesitated. Sir, most of those ships are 15 years old. We stored them when we switched to the Mercy Fleet. Those ships were built for war, Mary. They don't have medical bays or civilian comforts. They have armor, weapons, and crews who remember how to fight. He turned to the rest of the war room. Send orders to the Mard shipyards. Restart all military production lines. And get me a secure channel to the Titan defense grid. The room erupted into activity. Officers rushed to terminals, sending orders across the solar system. Deep in Mars' underground facilities, massive factory lines hummed to life. On Titan, hidden missile batteries powered up for the first time in over a decade. Sir, Mary called out, looking at a new report. We're receiving a transmission from the Rapid Response Fleet. They've rescued survivors from the Hope's light attack. Officer Peters is alive. Her message is spreading through the colonies. John walked to the main view screen, which now showed Samantha Peters' recorded warning. He watched as she described the attack, her voice steady despite the terror she had witnessed. The Zoraxians think they understand us now, he said quietly. They've seen our mercy ships. They've watched us heal their sick and help their colonies. They think they know humanity's capabilities. He turned to his staff. They're about to learn how wrong they are. Orders, Admiral, Mary asked. Send word to all colonies. Tell them help is coming, but not mercy ships this time. He looked at the display showing Earth's hidden military might. Contact the Luna shipyards. Begin reactivating the Dreadnought fleet. And Mary. Yes, sir. Find me every combat veteran who retired when we switched to mercy ships. It's time to remind them what they once were. It's time to remind everyone that humanity's kindness was a choice, and the Zoraxians just made us choose differently. The war room's lights dimmed as more systems came online. Below the surface of Mars, assembly lines began producing warships instead of medical vessels. In the ice caves of Europa, massive hangar doors opened for the first time in 15 years. Earth was going to war. Deep beneath Europa's ice sheets, Commander Eric Phillips walked through the massive underground hangar. His footsteps echoed off metal walls that hadn't heard sound in 15 years. Above him, through kilometers of clear ice, Jupiter's faint light cast blue shadows across rows of silent warships. "Power systems are at 90%, sir," Lieutenant Alice Cooper reported, keeping pace with him. Her tablet displayed streams of data as maintenance crews brought the base back to life. "The ice has actually helped preserve most of the systems. These ships are in better shape than we expected." They stopped in front of the largest vessel in the hangar. The EWS Vengeance stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, its dark hull designed to absorb sensor scans rather than reflect them like the Mercy ships did. No red crosses marked its sides. Instead, heavy armor plates and weapon ports lined its length. "Begin warming up the reactor," Eric ordered. "I want full system checks on all weapons, shields, and engines." He touched the ship's cold hull, remembering when these vessels were Earth's primary fleet. "How many can we have ready in 24 hours? Alice checked her data. 5 of the smaller destroyers are almost ready now. The Vengeance will take another 12 hours. The rest of the heavy cruisers need at least 48 hours for full reactivation." Workers swarmed around them, removing preservation seals and connecting power lines. The hangar's massive lighting systems were coming online one by one, revealing more ships in the depths of the facility. Each one represented a part of Earth's history they had chosen to set aside in favor of peace. "Commander," a technician called from nearby, "we found something interesting in the Vengeance's computer core. The old combat simulations are still running." Eric and Alice followed him into the ship. The corridors were narrow, built for efficiency rather than comfort. No wide medical bays or civilian quarters here. Every space was dedicated to survival and combat. They reached the bridge, where more crews worked to bring systems online. The main screen flickered to life, showing combat data that had been processing for 15 years. The computers never stopped running scenarios, Alice said, studying the displays. They'd been analyzing every conflict in human history, developing new strategies. Even in storage, these ships were preparing for war. Eric sat in the captain's chair, brushing dust from the controls. "What about the newer Zoraxian shield technology? Can these older weapons penetrate them?" Alice smiled. "That's the interesting part, sir. The simulations suggest our older weapons might actually work better. The Zoraxians built their defenses to stop modern energy weapons, the kind they've seen on our patrol ships. They never planned for ballistic weapons and kinetic strikes. Because we stopped using them," Eric realized. "We thought we were advancing by switching to energy weapons, but we were just becoming predictable." He pressed a button, and more screens lit up around the bridge. "How are the missile bays?" "Sealed and preserved. We have enough tungsten rods and kinetic penetrators to punch through anything the Zoraxians have. They built their shields to disperse energy weapons. They've never faced a ship designed to simply smash through their defenses." The deck beneath them vibrated as the Vengeance's reactor came fully online. Throughout the ship, lights flickered on and systems booted up. The weapon ports along its hull began to open and close, testing their long-dormant mechanisms. "Admiral Carter wants us ready for combat as soon as possible," Eric said. "We're not just reactivating a fleet. We're bringing back a way of warfare the enemy has never seen." Alice nodded, watching as more ships in the hangar came to life. They studied our Mercy ships for years, learning everything about them. But these vessels, she gestured at the war fleet around them. "These are something else entirely. These ships don't heal. They don't help. They hunt." Through the ice above them, Jupiter's light grew stronger as Europa's night cycle ended. The underground base hummed with activity as Earth's hidden fleet awakened, ready to remind the galaxy that humanity's choice to show mercy hadn't made them weak. It had only hidden their strength. Captain Patricia Grant stood on the bridge of the EWS Vengeance, watching Saturn's rings glow in the darkness ahead. Her crew worked silently at their stations, each person aware of the history they were about to make. This would be humanity's first deliberate act of war in 15 years. Zoraxian fleet detected, the sensor officer reported. 6 heavy cruisers and 12 support ships. They're escorting the vessels that attacked the Hope's Light. Patricia nodded, her expression hard. She had served on Mercy ships before taking this command, had watched the recordings of their destruction. Are they in position? Yes, Mom. They're following the exact patrol route we predicted. They still think they're hunting survivor pods. The Vengeance hung silent in space, its dark hull hidden against the backdrop of Saturn's largest ring. 4 other warships waited nearby, their systems running quiet. Everything about these older vessels was different from modern ships, from their angular, armored hulls to their primitive but effective weapons. All ships, battle stations, Patricia ordered. Load kinetic penetrators in all forward tubes. Prepare tungsten rods for orbital drop. Time to show them what real warships can do. The crew moved with practiced efficiency. Many had been recalled from retirement, veterans who remembered how to fight. The younger officers watched and learned as loading mechanisms pulled massive metal rods into firing position. Enemy ships entering range. The weapons officer said, "They haven't detected us. Their sensors are sweeping for energy signatures, but we're not using energy weapons." Patricia allowed herself a small smile. The Zoraxians had studied Earth's Mercy ships and patrol vessels, learning to counter their advanced energy weapons and shields. But these older warships were built around a simpler principle: overwhelming physical force. All ships, execute attack pattern Delta, she commanded. Remember your training. These aren't Mercy ships. You're not here to help or heal. You're here to fight. The Vengeance's engines roared to life as it burst from its hiding place in Saturn's rings. Chunks of ice and rock scattered around it, creating a cloud of debris that confused enemy sensors. The other Earth ships emerged too, moving in perfect formation. The Zoraxian ships reacted slowly, surprised by the sudden appearance of unknown vessels. They tried to raise their energy shields, the same ones that had so easily blocked shots from Earth's Mercy ships. Fire. The Vengeance shuddered as it launched its first salvo. Massive tungsten rods, each weighing several tons, shot toward the enemy fleet at incredible speeds. The Zoraxian shields flared as they tried to stop the simple metal projectiles. But their defenses were designed to deflect energy weapons, not solid objects moving at near relativistic velocities. The first rod punched straight through a Zoraxian cruiser's shields and continued through its hull, leaving gaping holes in its wake. More rods followed, accompanied by kinetic penetrators from the other Earth ships. Space lit up with explosions as vessel after vessel discovered their advanced shields meant nothing against such basic weapons. Enemy fleet is breaking formation, the tactical officer reported. They're trying to retreat. Their shields can't handle physical impacts of this magnitude. Pursue and destroy, Patricia ordered. Don't let them warn the others about our capabilities. The Earth warships accelerated, their older engines pushing them forward with raw power. They didn't have the grace or speed of modern ships, but they didn't need it. They were built to endure and overcome. As the battle continued around Saturn's rings, Patricia sent a brief message back to Earth Command. First engagement successful. Enemy shields ineffective against kinetic weapons. They expected Mercy ships. They found warriors instead. The Zoraxian fleet, which had so confidently attacked Earth's hospital ships, now fled in panic from vessels they had never known existed. But they couldn't escape. These weren't merciful healers pursuing them now. These were warships, awakened from their long sleep, reminding the galaxy why humanity had chosen peace in the first place. It hadn't been because they couldn't fight. It had been because they knew exactly how well they could. Commander Daniel Hayes crouched behind a fallen pillar in the captured Zoraxian research station, his old-style ballistic rifle held ready. Around him, His strike team moved silently through the dim corridors, their boots making no sound on the metal floor. They had trained for weeks to use these simpler weapons, learning to fight the way their grandparents had. Server room ahead. Susan Miller whispered through their secure comm channel. She led the tech team. Former military hackers called back to service. Heavy security, but nothing we haven't seen before. Dan checked his ammunition. Real bullets, not energy packs. Remember, no energy weapons. They'll detect those. Use physical attacks only. The team moved forward, encountering 3 Zoraxian guards. Instead of laser fire or plasma bolts, the humans used quick hand-to-hand combat moves and simple steel knives. The guards fell without raising an alarm, their advanced armor useless against such primitive attacks. They really did forget about the old ways, Susan said, stepping over the fallen guards. She pulled out a portable computer, its technology deliberately outdated. They're so focused on stopping advanced attacks, they forgot to guard against the basics. The server room door had an advanced electronic lock. Dan smiled and pulled out a small shake charge. Simple explosives, technology hundreds of years old. The door didn't stand a chance. Inside, Susan and her team got to work. Their outdated computers were too simple for the Zoraxian security systems to recognize as threats. While modern hacking tools would have triggered alarms, these ancient programs slipped right through. Got it, Susan announced after 10 minutes. You need to see this, Commander. Dan looked at her screen. It showed the Zoraxian battle plans, their strategies, and most importantly, their weaknesses. They really did build everything around stopping advanced technology. Their whole civilization runs on energy shields and complex computers, Susan explained. Look at these readings from the battle at Saturn. Their shields are tuned to stop energy weapons, but they waste power trying to block our kinetic attacks. The more we use simple weapons, the more power they waste trying to adapt, Dan finished. That's why the Vengeance's attack worked so well. Are you seeing this, Command? Back on their ship in orbit, the communications officer relayed their findings to Earth. Admiral Carter's voice came through their comms. Good work, Commander. How much more can you get? Susan's fingers flew over her keyboard. Their entire defense network is built on the same principle. They thought we'd keep advancing, keep making more powerful energy weapons. They never imagined we'd go back to basics. More data flowed through their simple computers. Battle plans, shield frequencies, fleet positions. The Zoraxians had left it all vulnerable to old technology they thought no one used anymore. Sir, Dan reported to Admiral Carter, we're looking at their whole war strategy. They plan to use our Mercy ships against us, thinking those ships showed everything we could do. They never knew about the mothballed fleet because they only saw what we wanted them to see, Carter finished. Good work, Commander. Get your team out of there. We have what we need. Dan gave the order to withdraw, but not before Susan planted a final surprise in the Zoraxian computers, a simple computer virus written in programming language so old it was practically ancient. By the time they realized what it would be too late. The strike team moved back through the station, still using their primitive weapons and basic tactics. As they reached their extraction point, Dan looked at his rifle, a design virtually unchanged in centuries. Sometimes the old ways are best, he said quietly. Their ship, running dark and silent like the warships it supported, picked them up without firing a shot. As they pulled away from the station, Dan watched the first signs of Susan's virus taking effect. Station lights flickered, doors opened and closed randomly, and defense systems shut down one by one. The Zoraxians had built their entire civilization around stopping the newest, most advanced attacks. They had never thought to look behind them, never imagined that their greatest threat would come from humanity's past rather than its future. Earth now had everything it needed to win this war, not with superior technology or advanced weapons, but with the simple, brutal efficiency that humanity had spent centuries trying to forget. Admiral John Carter stood on the bridge of the HFY Retribution, watching as both war fleet and mercy ships gathered for the final battle. Beside him, Captain Laura Mitchell, rescued from the Hope's Light months ago, checked the tactical display. The combined fleet represented everything humanity could be, both healers and warriors. Zoraxian home fleet approaching, Laura reported. They're moving to protect their capital world. Her voice was steady now, no longer haunted by memories of her destroyed mercy ship. 500 vessels, mixed types. John nodded. And how many do we have? 200 warships from the mothballed fleet, 50 modern patrol vessels, and, she paused, smiling slightly, 20 mercy ships, refitted with armor and weapons while keeping their medical bays. The massive fleet hung in space, Earth vessels of every type gathered for the first time. The dark, angular warships protected the white-hulled mercy ships, which now carried both doctors and marines. Each represented a lesson learned over months of war. Enemy fleet in range, the tactical officer announced. They're charging weapons and shields. John looked at Laura. Would you like to give the order, Captain? You were there when this war started. You should be here when it ends. Laura stepped forward, her white medical uniform standing out among the military crew. All ships, execute battle plan Echo. Warships forward, mercy ships hold position, and prepare to receive casualties. Today we show them everything humanity can be. The war fleet moved first, their simple kinetic weapons overwhelming Zoraxian shields just as they had in every battle. But this time was different. Behind the warships, mercy ships waited with medical teams ready to treat the injured, even enemy wounded. Sir, Laura said quietly, we're receiving a transmission from the Zoraxian command ship. The main screen lit up, showing a Zoraxian admiral. His expression showed confusion as he saw both Laura in her medical uniform and John in his military one, standing side by side. You attack us with primitive weapons, the Zoraxian said, yet you bring hospital ships to heal our wounded. We don't understand. John stepped forward. You saw our mercy ships and thought we were weak. You saw our kindness as something to exploit. What you never understood was that our mercy was a choice. We chose to help rather than harm, Laura added. We chose to heal rather than hurt, but we never forgot how to fight. We simply decided not to, until you gave us no choice. On the tactical display, more Earth ships emerged from hyperspace, warships and mercy ships together, each representing a different side of humanity's nature. Surrender now, John offered, and those mercy ships will treat your wounded, just as they did before. Fight on, and our warships will show you why we chose peace in the first place. The Zoraxian admiral looked at his own displays, watching as more of his ships fell to Earth's simple but devastating weapons. Behind them, mercy ships moved in to rescue escape pods from both sides. We accept your terms, he said finally. We understand now. Your mercy wasn't weakness, it was strength. Hours later, as the mercy ships did what they were built for, helping anyone in need, John and Laura watched from the Retribution's observation deck. Earth ships of both types worked together, some fighting the last pockets of resistance while others saved lives. What happens now? Laura asked. Now we do what humanity does best, John replied. We rebuild, we heal, and we remember that being able to fight doesn't mean we have to. Being strong doesn't mean we can't be kind. The Europa Accords were signed a week later. They established new rules for interstellar relations, emphasizing both the importance of peaceful cooperation and the right of peaceful species to maintain defensive capabilities. Earth's fleet remained, both warships and mercy ships, a constant reminder that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in choosing one path or the other, but in being able to walk both.